Midwest, home sweet home in good old Indiana. Place of small towns, cozy families gathered together, and fields of corn and rustic woods. But, like any town, there is a dark underbelly that often goes unnoted. We are part of that darkness. We lurk in the shadows to bring you the best in horror, metal, and stories of the grotesque. This is Blood in the Cornfields. All right, welcome everyone to Blood in the Cornfields. Kind of excited about this one today. We got some true crime definitely coming for you. It's myself and Ivy today.
Hello. Yes, we're going to be doing some true crime. Hopefully I prepared well for this. I feel it's very important to Indiana's history, especially when it comes to child protection laws. So something that we're very passionate about.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to that. Before we get in, I recently went to Days of the Dead Indianapolis.
Oh, hell yeah. What was that like?
It was great. The thing I love about these conventions, obviously it's like the celebrities. I only geek out for like 4. So some of them it's just like, whatever. It's kind of cool to see them. You know,
yeah, no
see them on screen and then see them now.
Yeah, they're regular people.
Yes.
Who would have thought, man?
Yes. My favorite thing is to see like the haggard chicks that were like so hot and all like, and they're just trying to hold on to it. Tara Reid, to mention a few names.
Sorry, Tara.
But no, the thing that's great is the vendors. Like I would love to do it myself if I ever got my little clothing thing up and running, which I doubt I ever will. But anyway.
Oh, don't beat yourself up about it. That takes time, man.
Yeah, the vendors are really cool. Lots of local artists and stuff like that.
That's
through pictures, clothing. Some of my favorite ones were a guy by the name of Paul Bear. It's spelled weird. Hell, I don't know.
Beautiful.
It's called Paul Bear Press.
Oh, I've heard about them. They're on Instagram, yeah.
Yes, so he's out of Austin, Texas, and it's where I got the Phantasm shirt I'm wearing.
That's awesome.
But he's got a lot of cool shit. Like he had some, like what I don't know, I'm not into fashion, but like what I would consider like female booty shorts, like the black and the like white.
Oh
perimeter.
yeah, with like the little bit of like the sport look.
Yeah, they're kind of like cut in the thigh or whatever, but he had like Frankenhooker ones.
Oh,
like,
shit.
Yeah, Days of the Dead, different things like that.
Oh, I would totally get some Frankenhooker ones.
Yeah, Paul Bear Press out of Austin, Texas was one.
Yeah, and slap on there, though, to make a note. Slap on there on the butt cheeks. Want a date? Want to go out?
Exactly. And then 13X Studios was another one. Ooh. So that's actually the guy that, if you remember Terrifier 2, the selfie guy.
Oh, yeah.
So where it's the final girl and she's got the wings on and everything. And he takes a selfie. I think he's got like his hat backwards or whatever. But anyway, sorry, I forget your name, dude. But he has hockey masks, like Jason masks, that he does custom. But he'll do like different characters. So he'll do like the lead singer of Slipknot. He'll do Killer Clowns. And it's like in the art of that. But
oh, shit, with hockey masks.
Yes, I'm shouting him out because I got to reach out to him later on because I wanted to buy, he had a hockey mask, but it was Leatherface Pretty Girl.
Oh,
so it had like the makeup and everything like Leatherface, and you know, that's pretty much all I collect. So yeah, that was pretty badass. So he does orders, he does take orders on his Instagram page. It's just 13 Studios.
13 Studios.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm yet to message him, but I will. But yeah, great pictures. I bought some t-shirts from this girl who has like this clothing rack where they like, I swear she took them out of someone's closet because they like smelled. Kind of funny, but naturally that didn't deter me.
Yeah.
And then I bought 2 shirts. One was from High on the Hog, which is a Sid Haig movie from like 2019. Wow. And I just loved it because it says it's hotter than a butt cheek sandwich out here.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah, bought that. But they're great because it's like just, you know, people running around. There's people that cosplay. You can go listen to panels if you want to pay for celebrities and stuff like that. I went to one last year, met Bill Moseley, absolute best. Nobody else compares. He's the A1 number celebrity that I would want to meet, and I did. So that was pretty awesome, but not at this one, but that was at a previous one. But they're just great. They're great to kind of be in an actual community that I feel like I belong to.
Absolutely, especially out here in the Midwest, because it seems like, you know, with Indiana.
Yep.
Where are you going to meet just some random, you know, horror fan out on the street? Probably you got a chance of like 5% out here.
Definitely.
Once in a while, you'll maybe look at like while you're driving down the highway or whatever, you'll see a really neat car and it's got cool stuff and you're like, we could be friends.
Yeah.
But how are you going to get their attention?
Yeah.
Never.
And I'm so antisocial. Like, I don't know.
Once you get their attention, it's like,
somebody.
I don't know how in the house to talk to you,
I would
man.
say something stupid. I'd be like, nice shirt. And then they're probably antisocial and they're going to say thanks. And then we're going to turn and walk different directions. Neither of us is going to have the balls to actually be like, hey,
Start a conversation.
But now that I have a podcast, I need to have like, I don't know if it's
old
school to have business cards and be like, hey, take that. I don't know, business cards for podcasts, maybe stupid.
I don't think it is. I think that's perfect. You mean, the thing is, though, you get a collection of cards, which I do in my purse. Yeah. And then I'll eventually, that's the thing, that's how you get people. You'll eventually look through them and be like,
the 13X Studios got me a business card because I asked for one and he had one, so maybe it does work.
So there's a method to the madness.
Absolutely. And coming up in November, they're having Days of the Dead Chicago. So I'm going to be going to that too. So looking forward to that, definitely, but not too hog up all the time. What's new with you?
So, I have recently, and as of this recording, have watched the newest Evil Dead movie in the franchise.
I bought it, yet to watch it.
Man, was looking forward to it just because I like the concept. As y'all might know, I'm a new mother. Yes. So, I like the concept of it's a mom deadite and she has children. And oh my God, that is absolutely a horrifying concept because there's this lady, she's trying to kill her babies, essentially.
Which is like probably the ultimate crime.
That's terrible.
Feticide, or I guess that's just killing your little ones.
I don't know if you're killing your kids.
I don't know if it applies for adults.
I totally get that, like, sometimes they really piss you off.
Yeah.
That you want to kill them, but you're not gonna kill them because then you look at all them pictures and go, "It's my baby."
Yes,
you can't kill them. So, like, that's a ridiculous premises, and I was just like, and it takes place in a high rise, so I automatically go to Demons 2, and I'm just like, oh, if you go Demons 2 with this taking place in a high rise, hell yes.
Yes.
How neat. Let's just put it this way, because I want to keep it, spoiler free as much as possible. In short, I loved it. I thought it was very good. Is it as good as the other Evil Dead movies in the franchise? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It does not hold a candle.
Does it follow like any sort of like, I would say like slapstick way of like the first ones, kind of slapstick corny?
So it's definitely got dark humor in there, but I would not call it slapstick.
Yeah, I don't know what to describe it, but you know what I mean? It's like,
exactly. It's almost on the par and almost is a nice successor to I think it was 2013 remake.
Okay, yeah.
It's kind of in the same vein.
One. I really like that one.
It's not as dark and as brutal as that one will ever be, but it definitely is a good companion piece to that one because in tone, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Where how sometimes there are some silly things that happen in that one and callbacks.
Yeah.
This one has a lot of callbacks to the rest of the franchise. Yeah. And believe it or not, and I don't know if I really want to spoil it or not, but Ash does make a tiny, tiny appearance.
I had heard that.
But you need to really listen for it. That's all I'm going to say. You need to listen for it.
Does he say, give me some sugar, baby?
No, I wish. No. But you'll definitely hear Bruce Campbell's voice when you hear it,
Awesome. But you'd recommend it?
I would highly recommend that movie. I loved it. I am going to be watching it again with a couple other friends. So it's like, you guys need to see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, like I said, I bought it, and I'm a nerd, a little bit weird. I don't watch movies in theater, so I will only watch it if I collect it on any sort of format, whether it's VHS, whether it's, DVD, 4K, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I watch them. So I've yet to watch it, like hopefully maybe some of you out there. But my kid is around me a lot right now, so won't be able to watch it. She's only 6. It's way too much for a 6-year-old. So I'll be watching it here come soon. So it's exciting.
Anytime that I see Evil Dead or anything with regards to any sort of Evil Dead project, I automatically think, what would Blake think? Yep. I need to know. Like,
yeah, exactly.
What would be his thoughts? Exactly. He was the ultimate Evil Dead nerd.
Yeah.
Like, I just remember his tattoo sleeve having the video game character And I'm just like, nobody knows that character. What?
Yeah, we used to play the originals on PlayStation together and stuff like that. I don't know, but we used to always talk about biscuits and mustard, and I don't know if that's a line from the game.
I can't
Maybe
say that I
some of you out there
remember.
can research it, but yeah, something about biscuits and mustard. I don't know. It's just so weird, but yeah, I think it was from that game. Unfortunately, the one that came out this past year is not so good.
Oh, that was the one with the people that did the Friday the 13th game and Evil Clowns recently.
Yes, yeah. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a different one, but that's in the same vein.
Yeah.
That'll be
I think
coming
it's the
out
same
shortly.
creators, but yeah, I didn't get a chance to play the Evil Dead one yet. I like the Jason one as long as I was playing it by myself and not with the internet.
Yes.
Like, I enjoyed it, and also the hype for the Jason game. I literally was I'm obviously a big Friday the 13th fan,
Yes.
but like, I was so hyped for it because there was this one channel on YouTube that was just going through all the references found and all the Easter eggs, and I was binge watching those when it was first coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, the thing, we'll kind of get into the, our true crime here in a second, but I just thought of a story that is really funny. So when the Friday 13th game came out, Blake was still alive. And with that, you play online and you can be in like a group and one person's Jason and you're all the camp counselors.
Yeah.
So I was playing and Blake was Jason. And so like he's running around and I'm like in the cabin and I'm like...
Huddling in the...
I'm like, I see you. And he's like trying to find me. And like I'm just talking shit to him. And he goes and finds this other guy. And there's like a kill scene where he'll like go up and grab him.
Yeah.
And then you hit the button and then he does the kill scene or whatever. So Blake picks him up and doesn't do the kill sequence.
Oh, no.
So he's holding him by the neck and like just walking around and I'm laughing and I'm trying to be like, directing him to me.
Oh, that's funny.
And it goes on for like 2 minutes and it went on so long. The guy that he's holding by the neck goes, bro, are you going to kill me?
That's
it's
awesome.
so funny. And like just Jason, you just see him walking and holding this guy by the neck.
That's
it was
funny.
Absolutely hilarious. I love that.
Oh my God, that's a good memory.
Wish he was still here so I could have more of those. But yeah, it was absolutely great. Enough with me. Let's get to your true crime. I'm interested to hear this one.
Yeah, definitely. So this is one that I was researching for a bit, and unfortunately, funny story, the original audio that we did for it got completely wiped and erased, and so here we are doing it over again. So hopefully this will be more of a footnotes version of it. The other one was a little bit more convoluted, so let's hope that I do this one a little better.
I have early dementia, so I'm going to forget everything that you said anyway, so it'll be fresh.
In October of 1965, a young girl was found with multiple beatings and tied up in... There's different stories that say whether she was found in the bedroom or in the basement on a mattress, tied up and beaten and bloodied and bruised. She was only 16-year-old, and her name was Sylvia Likens.
Likens, that's a cool last name.
Yeah. And apparently, basically, the story goes that she was left under the care of a negligent woman. Her name was Gertrude, who was charged of murdering this poor girl, as well as two other boys who were neighborhood children that apparently also did things to her that led to her murder as well. Almost like they were in cahoots with Gertrude.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's more than one fucked up person.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So kind of how the story begins is that Lester and Betty Likens, this is Sylvia's parents, were traveling carnival people. Like, they would be going to different places. It was Sylvia's dad, Lester, who could not hold down a job half the time.
Typical carny.
Right, exactly. Like, he worked multiple different jobs. He tried to run his own business at one point, and it completely failed. But for whatever reason, the carnival life, because it was so sustainable, it was always moving, always going all over the place, at least during the summer, they were able to make a steady income.
Yeah.
They had, I think, 4 children altogether. They had 2 boys, 2 girls. That's kind of important to the story because for the summer, they had the boys go live with their grandparents for the summer. But the girls, they were having a hard time trying to find somebody to take care of them. Why they had to separate the kids is weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
In the first
grandparents
place.
Can't handle them all?
Right? Maybe not. Maybe they're trying to give them a break. I don't know. But they decided to take the girls to someone else. And I guess it was a family friend of sorts. But it's like one of those family friends where, like, you kind of know them. You maybe see them in passing. Or they're a friend of a friend.
Like babysitter in a pinch.
Yeah. One of those people.
Gotcha.
And so Gertie was left in charge of these two girls. And it would have been Sylvia and her little sister. Sylvia and Jenny.
So that's the other sister, the other girl. Okay.
Yeah. And Jenny's like, I think about a year younger. She's kind of more on the shy side, whereas Sylvia was definitely more of a protector, always looking out for her sisters and her siblings.
Gotcha.
So that's also pretty important as well. When she went into the care of Gertrude, I guess it must have been like kind of like late fall because school was still kind of in session. When she came into their care. Maybe it was like the start of school or something like that. Basically, Sylvia was friends with one of Gertrude's daughters, and they got along pretty well, and I think that's actually how Gertrude met the Likens family, was through friends. So basically, when they started staying there with them, the Likens parents were trying to send Gertrude at least a check for, I think, $20 a week or some odd number like that, At one point, a check never came. And I think she had been watching them for about 2 weeks or so. And they were scheduled to watch, and she was scheduled to watch them for like maybe a couple months, maybe 3 months, or however long that the sessions were running. Gertrude was not happy about that at all. And her first reaction is to basically shout at them and say, "This is what I get for watching you two sluts."
Sluts are expensive to watch. They are a handful,
But, like, these are just two little girls. What the fuck? Like, that's not their fault. Like, what the hell? And, so that's where the kind of horror begins, is they are just doing their best now at this point to survive with this woman. Not to mention, this woman has like, let's see here, I gotta count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 children.
Oh, shit. Okay.
In a small ass little house.
Yeah.
And not to mention, let's get into kind of the killer's perspective, because there's a lot of parallels between Likens and Gertrude. The killer. Gertrude was born in a family that did not respect her either. Rather, not saying that the Likens girls weren't respected, but she was definitely heavily criticized for being one of the youngest girls that Gertrude's father doted on constantly.
Oh, okay.
And because she was doted on so much, her mom got very jealous. Gertrude's mom got very jealous and started calling her a slut. And said that she had diseases and all, making up stories about
her own child.
Yeah. Because she was jealous about how much time she was spending time with her father. She's just being a little girl. She's enjoying this.
That's insane. That tells you about the psychological makeup of, like, the genetics that's probably running through this family.
Exactly. No kidding. So, like, Gertrude, later on, her father dies, and she is still basically ridiculed and basically made fun of. She said she's ugly, she's worthless, all this other stuff. That, of course, when somebody is abused like that, they're more than likely sometimes are, because they don't have a healthy upbringing, they're not sure what a good relationship looks like.
And I'm sure she's probably sensitive and vulnerable because it sounds like she's close to Dad. And if Dad dies, and then now, she's just a slut with nobody else to protect her. And, she's probably unleashing it all on her.
Exactly. And her husband was an Indianapolis police officer. And he was a young man. He was like probably 17 when they got married. And she was very young. I think she was like 16 or something like that. she, you know, clung to him and she wanted to be taken care of by him. So much so that, you know, she really relied on him even when he started to beat her. And there's multiple instances of this asshole beating this woman. And Gertrude later on, you know, ditches him, has like, I don't know, like 3 babies with him, ditches him, and tries to get herself back out there. She actually has a lot of postpartum depression, which is really, really serious.
Yeah.
You know, it affects a lot of women. And she also has a couple miscarriages, which of course she was blamed by her previous husband on.
Yeah. Which stress can induce that if he's beating the shit out of her. Like,
right. Exactly.
That's crazy.
So
postpartum's no joke. Remember Andrea Yates? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
The lady that drowned every individual child in the bathtub. That's the worst story.
That
ever.
is.
Especially being a parent. Like, I can't
fathom that. I don't know how sick you have to be to do something like that to your own children. That's just, I hate that.
Yeah, we had that recently with the homeboy that shot his kids in the front yard.
Oh, Jesus. That's
in Ohio.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so
insane.
sickening.
It's horrible. That's the worst thing.
Yeah, and like you just can't imagine, you know, ever doing anything like this to your own child. Yeah. So it's like, Jesus Christ, you need help. You need a lot of help.
Yeah, but it does show you, like, the whole dynamic that she's coming from. And it's, like, learned behavior because she was so young and experiencing that abuse. And then, obviously, she has not had a good role model and set example of, like, what a successful relationship is. So no wonder she's 16 or, you know, has a few kids or whatever, how old she is. Yeah. But, yeah, like, I mean, she's coming from that dynamic.
And she goes on to have multiple other abusive relationships, so much so that she has actually been punched in the stomach and had to have an abortion. Because
that's crazy.
Yeah, but she stuck with that guy because she wanted to feel needed and like that she belonged, and who doesn't? But this is just terrible that she had to go through that and without any positive, you know, experiences.
Yeah, it just shows you the cycle of trauma. Like it's a real thing.
So knowing that about Gertrude and all these children she's had, you know, in her past, going back to the Likens kids, she teaches her children to pick on Sylvia and Jenny.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so her oldest daughter, Paula, is definitely still is a bitch. She definitely has a lot to go. She has a lot to contribute in this story as well. Basically, her daughter, Paula, later became pregnant from doing stuff outside of wedlock. And Sylvia found out about it.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it.
Sylvia found out about it, and basically she started talking to other kids. You know, she's a kid. She's going to talk to other kids about it. And once Gertrude found out about that, she basically beat Sylvia senseless for it.
Wait, so the one girl goes and has sex out of wedlock, and then the other daughter gets beat for it?
Yep, and... Also, Gertrude.
I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah. Isn't that what you do? But Gertrude decided to flip the script. So anytime anybody outside the home asked about the situation with Paula, she would basically say, oh no, that's Sylvia. Sylvia's the one that has been sleeping around with everybody. She's the one that's pregnant, not my daughter. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And basically... at around that point, Gertrude starts asking Sylvia a lot of questionable questions.
Okay.
Basically, have you ever had sex? Have you ever done it with a guy? And then they just progressively start getting weirder and weirder, and more inappropriate.
Yeah.
Have you ever orgasmed? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you're asking this to a 16-year-old kid, and you're a grown-ass adult. Yeah. And it's not her kid. It's this kid she's watching.
True. Yeah.
You know? So it's like, what the fuck? Where are you going with this? But again, traumatized people, they doesn't justify what she's doing, but it's like, you can see the mindset she's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, she asked her all these things, and Sylvia says, well, no, I've never done anything with anybody, but I do have a boyfriend or a guy friend that I've been seeing or talking to. And then that's when, Gertrude snaps and decides to beat her again. And basically says that she's the slut, you're no good, all this other stuff. And she kind of gets Jenny in on it as well. Jenny has also been picked on by several of Gertrude's children because she's so shy. And basically, because Jenny won't put up a fight, she kind of drags Jenny along in these beatings. Basically, look at what your sister, who your sister is, look at how much of a slut she is, don't be like her. If you do, I'm going to beat you too. And because they were still late on payments, the Likens family was, she started to slowly start starving the girls and not feeding them when they were supposed to be fed.
Yeah.
So these poor little girls are having to pick through trash and trying to, find things to eat. Even at one point, they start trying to sell bottles to get money.
Yeah.
To find something to eat. Well, Gertrude finds out about this again.
Yeah.
And decides to torture both of them for it. Jenny is being beat as well with like a paddle or whatever, honestly, whatever hard object she has lying around, Gertrude is going to use. And she basically starts beating Jenny, and Sylvia steps up. She's always been the protector. She steps up and says,
she's defending her sister.
Yeah, don't do this to her. It's not her fault. It was my idea. I deserve all the punishment.
Yeah.
So Gertrude wails on her and goes to town with it.
Crazy.
But Gertrude also is a bit of a minx herself and a very disgusting person.
Well,
obviously. Yeah. There's other heinous things that she's done that the Likens girls have seen and witnessed.
Yeah.
One of the things is her house was the party house. Paula, her oldest daughter, is, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And all the other teenagers kind of see Gertie's house as a hangout spot because Gertie's gonna let them do whatever the hell they want. She's the cool mom.
The cool mom, yeah.
And she loves that. She is relishing in that. She probably never got that in her past. She never was a cool anything, especially with the way she'd been beaten all her life. So she's relishing in this, and she also is getting compliments from some of the young boys that are starting to come in.
Yeah.
You see where this is going.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could tell when you were saying that she was asking her, like, sexual type questions. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, hello. Yeah. That's a,
it's a predator right there.
Exactly.
Like, disgusting. You're
exactly. And the projection of calling her a slut and all this sort of stuff.
It's like, no. Bitch.
Yeah, you're just projecting onto her. Yeah. You look in the mirror, ho.
Yeah, right. And so she decides she's going to striptease for one of the boys. And it does happen to be one of the boys that is later charged with murder later on.
Of course, yeah.
Gertie's daughter also has one of her other daughters, I think, that was friends with Sylvia, had a boyfriend. This boyfriend came to the defense of his girlfriend, Gertie's daughter, one of Gertie's other daughters, and decided to pummel Sylvia after Sylvia got tired of all the shit and abuse she was getting from everyone. Yeah. Because I guess the one daughter basically said a lie about Sylvia, how she was a slut and hoe and all this. Mm-hmm. And Sylvia's just like, no, that wasn't me, that was you. Yeah. And so at one of these parties, that boyfriend comes back and beats the shit out of her. She comes to school the next day. She is just covered in bruises. Yeah. She, not only from the beatings that she had from Gertie, but also from this young man who beat her up. She basically goes back to school. People hear about it and see it. Yeah. Teachers even see it. Even neighbors have seen it. Yeah. But what do? Absolutely nothing. And when they were called, because Sylvia had to go to the nurse's office because she had a wound that just looked like it was festering, and they were very concerned about her. The school actually went over to Gertie's house to do a check of the house. Yeah. Gertie, of course, is pleasant as anybody can be, and is basically like, oh no, I don't know what to do about that Sylvia girl. She's just a slut. She keeps going out every night. She's all with all these boys, and I'm so worried about her, and blah, 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 blah. So she just goes on about that. And I know we're kind of coming to a head as far as like the story in general. But basically, it gets to the point where she is just now being beaten up for fun.
Yeah.
Like, the boys, like, the party's going, another party's happening the next night. Sylvia's basically dragged down to the basement, and basically Gertie's like, you know what? You can pay me a dime, do whatever you want with her. Beat her up, spit on her, put out your cigarettes on her.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And she's tied up.
Yeah.
And she also tries to make Jenny watch.
Yeah, her own sister.
Yeah. It gets to the point where one of the young men decides, oh, this is going to be so funny to do. I'm going to engrave with a burning hot needle, I'm a prostitute and proud of it, on her stomach.
That's a lot of letters, too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of writing going on.
Yep. And
Holy
imagine
shit.
how painful it is. This is a young girl, underdeveloped. You know, she's going through different things with her body already.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? The other heinous thing that they did to her was that a group of boys decided to shove I don't know if a group of boys did it or there was multiple, stories about exactly what happened. Either multiple boys did it to her, essentially raped her, or Gertie made Sylvia stuff a bottle, like a Coca-Cola bottle, up her vagina.
Oh, shit.
And when it got stuck, she basically shoved it in and shoved it out, and she just bled out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, she was beaten for making a mess.
Holy shit. That's insane.
That is absolutely heinous and terrible.
Yeah, to imagine like I don't want to say humility, but like the almost, not embarrassment, but like vulnerability, being naked and like everyone seeing you and just having like all those people, you not knowing what they're going to be doing, and then to be violated like that is just like, like, I don't know. I hope there's a special place for people like that. Like that's
right, no kidding.
Bullshit. Like that's insane to even think that like someone goes through that, because I'm sure there's times where she was like laying down there being like, like, what's next? Like, what are they not capable of,
Right. And these are like terrible teenage boys, like they're developing as well.
Yeah.
Not just hormones, but also they're strong. Kids are stronger than you give them credit for, especially, teenage boys that are basically adults pretty much.
Yeah.
That's just awful. And the fact that this parental figure is egging them on to do it.
Yeah.
Is what really gets me.
And so I'm going to say something that's going to sound kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, but like I try to put myself in the mindset of the victim.
Absolutely.
With all due respect, because like this is a human being that actually went through that. But like, if she truly had not had sex, her first time losing her virginity would have been to the Coke bottle. Like it would have broken her hymen and like all that sort of stuff. So like that's insane to like just think that like that's your first sexual experience and stuff. Like that's insane just to think about that. Like
and essentially just being raped by people you don't know.
Yeah.
Humiliated on top of that.
Yeah.
And being called something that you're not.
That's
all
crazy.
For the sake of also trying to protect your sister.
Yeah.
And I love my sister so much.
Do we know if sister watched this stuff or was like made to watch? Because I imagine she wouldn't willingly watch something like that.
I think she was made to watch it. I don't know in this particular instance if she did see that. But yeah, she was definitely, for most of the torture, she was made to watch it.
That's crazy.
It got, obviously, if that wasn't bad enough, it got to the point where Sylvia was looking like she was dead, basically dead. That
I'm sure part of her soul did die. Like she had a huge part, yeah.
She basically and outwardly looked dead.
Yeah.
So much so that Gertie could see it and was like, you're not going to school, ever.
Yeah, because she would be done for.
Exactly. So she kept her home and basically kept going on with the lie. Oh, she ran away and blah, blah, blah. Well, she was actually planning with these other two boys, that boyfriend and then the kid that she gave a striptease to. She was planning with these two boys to potentially kill Sylvia.
Yeah.
Her thoughts were she was going to have Sylvia, and actually she did go through with parts of it, setting it up, was to have Sylvia write a note in her own handwriting saying, I went off to the woods with a boy, I'm not coming back, and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, essentially to say if the police came looking for her, oh, no, sorry, she's gone.
Yeah.
And they were actually going to take her out to the woods and kill her.
Yeah.
And leave her there, Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
And you may be wondering, where are her parents in all this?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, apparently her parents did stop by the house, not once, twice, in the span of all this abuse. But because they were so low on funds, and because Sylvia was such a sweetheart, she tried so hard to keep it from them, because she knew that if they, the kids had to go on the road with them, they probably weren't going to have enough to sustain them and the kids and her and her sister. So she just kept up with the abuse, hoping it would eventually stop, because they were only supposed to be there for a couple months. And she did not want her parents to worry.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, shit, I can't. I see where she's coming from, but she's also a kid. Like,
yeah. And you never know, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, thinking about it with abuse, like, it could have, like, slowly, started to increase and then maybe plateaued. And so she maybe thought, like, hey, like, the beatings aren't really, like, that bad.
Yeah.
And then they could have just increased, like, at a rapid rate at some moment.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, her mindset might not have been, like, it was that bad when the parents, and then she may have thought, like, hey, it's an inconvenience to my family anyway, because they're, I don't want to be put out. So, like, you have to factor that in, too. Like,
absolutely.
It could have increased at a rampant rate. Like, once she brought, like, other people in and started saying, like, hey, yeah, do whatever. I mean, that could have happened over the course of, like, 2 weeks. Yeah. That it, like, increased dramatically. So you have to take that in consideration, too.
Absolutely. And the fact that she was also just being starved. And also, when she did get food, it was either covered in shit, literal shit.
That's horrible.
Or even covered in vomit. In one case where she was basically, the boys and Gertrude and Paula decided to make the grossest hot dog ever and thought it would be hilarious to watch Sylvia eat it. They basically put anything you could think of on a hot dog, different condiments, different things that didn't go together, maybe some rotten shit from the fridge, put it all on the hot dog, forced Sylvia to eat it, and basically, obviously, she couldn't take it, and she threw it back up. Yeah. When she threw it back up, they forced her to eat it again. And she was already starving.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, this all going on multiple times. It grew to a head when her body obviously could not handle the abuse anymore.
Yeah, she has no nutrients. She has, like, no protein. Like, she can't take the abuse anymore like she could when she was, more...
I guess when she was more healthy at that point.
Exactly, yeah.
So when her beatings came to a head was on, like, October 25th. So this would have been, like... They came into her care probably around, September. So literally a month later, this is in October. So like October 25th, basically just before her death, she tried to escape Gertie. She literally was trying. Gertie and those two boys caught her and basically said, don't you ever try to do that again, because they were afraid she was going to go tell somebody.
Yeah. And then they'd all be in trouble. Yeah.
And so they beat her over the head with a curtain rod multiple times until it bent. And they shoved her back down in the basement. She was beaten so badly that she could not talk or move. She defecated on herself, and because of that, Gertie stomped on her head.
Jeez. And
also kicked her in the nose, and had the two boys spray her down with a hose for defecating on herself.
That's terrible.
Gertie's daughter, this time it was the friend of Sylvia, came down and saw that Sylvia was hurt. Even though she knew all about these bad things that were going on, she also had the other young children to help take care of as well. This does not justify what she did and that she knew about it, But in one last-ditch effort, it was reported that Sylvia and Jenny both tried to take Sylvia upstairs to a nice clean bed, dressed her wounds and all that, and that's where she died. So that's where there's different reports of, did she die downstairs or did she die, on a nice clean mattress. She finally succumbed to her wounds. Gertie called the police, claiming she found her dead.
Oh, yeah.
And claimed she ran away and came back again and found her like that. So when that happened, obviously she was, that was October 26th, the next day when she finally died. Sylvia was taken in for an autopsy, and this is what they found.
Yeah, that's what I was curious to hear.
So for the autopsy, they found 150 separate injuries, obviously in various stages of healing. They also found the scribbled message on her stomach.
The prostitute one?
Yep. And they also saw that she had passed away from blunt force trauma to the head. Yeah. And I think that was the majority of what got her, was the blunt force trauma. So at that point, Jenny finally felt safe to tell the police everything. And they arrested Gertie. They arrested Paula. They also arrested Sylvia's friend that helped her out at the very end. And the two boys for everything, because they knew about it. They actively participated in these beatings from what Jenny told them.
And these were just like neighborhood boys,
Yeah. And it wasn't until later on, and this is what's so weird, Gertie was charged, and this was like in the 70s. Gertie was charged with first-degree murder, and also so was Paula, the other daughter. They were sentenced with life without parole.
Awesome.
Kind of. And we'll get to that. John Jr., Coy, and Richard. John Jr. was obviously one of Gertie's other children, and the two neighborhood boys were sentenced anywhere from 2 to 21 years in prison. Not life parole, nothing. Nope, just 2 to 21 years because they were young. In 1970, Paula and Gertie are granted new trials by the state of Indiana. This is where it's interesting. Paula pled guilty and later was released in 1971. Gertie was sentenced to life, but she became a model prisoner, and everybody started calling her mom in prison because she was so kind and so sweet. That in 1984, she was granted parole.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So what are the total years?
So total years, let's see here. She was math, man.
Math it.
So 1965 is the year that all this shit went down. And when she was charged, 1965 to what do we have? What do we say? 1984.
1984. Yeah.
So 19 whole years.
Dang.
Compared to what she was supposed to get, which was life. Life. Yeah. 19 years. And she grew to the old age of, I'm not sure how old she was, but she died in 1990.
She gave to who gives a fuck how old she was? A fuck.
But it's very, very sad that she got out.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Why did you get out? Why were you allowed to get out, you trash person?
Yeah.
So you may be wondering why this was so impactful. Obviously very impactful.
Yeah.
But there was so many reports when this first came out that everybody in Indiana in the 70s and early 70s basically started questioning the safety of their children and who they were leaving their children with.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it was pointed out multiple times in the case, why didn't somebody do something about this if they saw that she was suffering multiple times from all the times that she escaped or that they saw her wounds, all that other stuff.
All that. So or when she stopped going to school.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's truancy.
Yeah.
Unless she pulled her out and said, like, hey, she's homeschooled. I know the laws now, but I don't know what they were back then. I mean...
Right, so. And this, like you mentioned, this took place within a couple of months and a couple of weeks, so it gradually just took over, so within the span of...
Or if anyone ever inquired, like, hey, where are her biological parents?
Yeah.
If she's going to school at, like, a babysitter's, like,
right. Where's her parents?
Yeah.
We need to talk to her.
Yeah.
But I do find this interesting that one of Gertie's children that was taken to prison later became a minister in Texas. and became a counselor for struggling youth.
Well, I mean,
that's something good came out of it.
Yeah.
Out of that whole situation, something good. As well as, of course, like I mentioned, Indiana now has a mandated state law that requires anyone in the state of Indiana, regardless of age or profession, to report any suspicion of child abuse to law enforcement.
Yeah.
So that is the law that this poor young lady died for. And there is a memorial actually for her that you can visit. So there's a granite memorial erected in Willard Park in Indianapolis that was erected in 2011. That is a memorial dedicated to Sylvia, and also in Lebanon, Indiana, there's an advocacy center called Sylvia Child Advocacy Center that helps with cases like this. So unfortunately, this poor young lady lost her life in a terrible, terrible way.
Yeah.
But the good that came out of it was that now hopefully no other child has to go through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess in that regards, thank you, Sylvia, for being a good daughter, a good sister.
Yeah.
A wonderful, loving sister.
That's crazy.
And for always being true to yourself and knowing what was right, even though you were persecuted in such a harmful way. And, I can't imagine what type of impact this left on poor Jenny. I know Jenny...
She saw a lot of that, yeah.
Jenny has since passed away, as a matter of fact. After Jenny's death, there, of course, were some movies that people wanted to make of Sylvia's life.
Interesting.
After Jenny died, because she was one of the last survivors of the Likens family. And also went through the abuse as well.
Yeah.
So after she died, there were 2 movies that came out, and I just want to touch on them briefly. One of them was in 2007. It's called An American Crime. It is the closest to the Likens story as it can be. It also has a couple interesting horror movie actors of note. One of them was Scout Taylor, who played Laurie Strode in the Rob Zombie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, her and Daniel Harris are really good friends. They have a podcast together.
Yeah. So Scout Taylor plays Stephanie, who was the friend of Sylvia.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we also have, let's see here. Evan Peters.
Really?
You know him.
Yeah.
From Dahmer and, of course, American Horror Story.
That's crazy.
Plays one of the asshole neighbor kids.
Okay.
Fitting for him. He does a good job playing asshole characters.
It is. It absolutely is.
So, yeah. A lot of the things that people, think about this movie is, one, it's a very good portrayal of what happened. Others also say it's a very watered down retelling of the story, which, yeah, anything's going to be.
Yeah. Some of that shit you can't.
And the other thing is, too, is that the main lady that plays Gertrude apparently was made into a sympathetic villain in the movie, which is very heinous.
Yeah.
I understand that we kind of delve into her life, but it still does not excuse what she did to Sylvia.
No, absolutely not.
And then the second movie that came out was called The Girl Next Door. It was loosely based on Sylvia's story. Instead, it was, the names were changed, of course, but it was based on a book by Jack Ketchum.
I don't read books, so I don't know authors, but sounds fancy.
But a neat thing of note with that one is that the director, also another horror movie reference, had directed the movie Clown. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have seen that one.
Yeah, he directed that movie, and he directed this movie.
Interesting.
So it was like one of his first movies that he directed was this one. So that was also a neat tidbit about those 2 movies. This movie in particular, The Girl Next Door, apparently did show a lot of the torture scenes that were similar to what Sylvia had actually gone through. So that, of course, was very impactful when watching it. I haven't seen either one of these, but from what other people have said, they're both based on Sylvia Likens' life, whether they be, as close as they can be or whatnot. But it's nice that story is getting out there. And honestly, that's kind of why we are doing what we're doing with the true crime podcast, or at least the true crime episodes of our podcast.
Yeah.
Our mission is to try to shed light on the person that was abused or murdered, so that way you know, as the audience, just the horror that they had to go through, and to remember this was an actual person.
Yeah.
We are trying to respect their lives.
Yeah.
By just expressing no person should ever have to go through this. Let's remember them for the person that they were, and let's the good that we can get out of this is basically look at the character that they were, the person that they were, and how they were the actual survivor of their story.
Yeah, and I think it's important to list everything that happened to the person, because, like, you know, in a sense, you could say, like, oh, it's, you know, too heinous, like, you know, you shouldn't be talking about it or whatever, but, like, that's something that the person actually went through. Like, telling about the Coke bottle, telling about, you know, actually getting, you know, I'm a prostitute and I love it, or whatever the fuck they said. I think it's important that, like, you know, we tell that, because that is something literally another human being went through, you know, and this person is no longer with us. And if you don't tell that story, then that in a sense dies. And, you know, there's all sorts of crazy shit that happens in this world every day. But I walk a fine line on, like, I'll use the Jeffrey Dahmer movie, for example. Yeah. I run a fine line on glorifying the serial killer and less of the victims. That's my only problem with that Jeffrey Dahmer, is I think they took it too much of a glorification, and it's maybe due to Evan's acting and his likability that really sparked that. But, like, you know, I heard for the people that were actually the victims of his crime, and I like how they did tell that story.
I agree, because I have watched a couple episodes, and
So they tell the story of what the victims kind of went through, but, like, I like it done in a non-glorification manner. Like, I'm not one of those people that's, like, gonna buy a fucking painting of Gacy, you know, that he did, or anything like that. It's like, no, I'm not going to give that fucking douchebag money. You know, like, he's dead now, but, you know, and I'm just using it as an example. Like, I'm not going to glorify the serial killer, but, like, for me, more, it's understanding what that person went through. And I have a fascination for crime, though. So I have, like, a little bit of a criminal background. I worked in jail and blah, blah, blah. So that also fascinates me. So, like, it could get construed to where, like, you know, it's glorification of the serial killer, but it's not for me. Like, I think that person's story should be told, but then I also like the crime aspect of it. And I like seeing patterns and similarities in certain killers, but then also the psychological aspect of it and stuff like that. So,
that's what's fascinating, because we saw that with Gertie. Like, we saw how the trauma that she went through affected what she did.
Yeah.
To poor Sylvia and Jenny.
And it's learned behavior. Like, you know, I'm not to justify it, but, like, she was no better than who came before her. Right. And she learned that. Her mom. And she just was not strong-willed of a person to break that cycle. And not everybody is. But, like, you know, that shit happens out there. We all know someone who's been abused, you know, but that cycle has to end, and ultimately it has to end with someone. And you know, she apparently wasn't strong enough to see it. And maybe there's, you know, mental factors that you know, factor into that and all that sort of stuff, too. So, you know, whether she was able to or not is kind of irrelevant. But, yeah, the moral of the story is don't be a fucking shitty parent.
Yeah,
like,
don't be an asshole.
Yeah, it really shouldn't. I mean, CPS is there for a reason, and I'd hope to think that they do their job. I don't know. I'm not sure what CPS has turned into nowadays. They get a bad rap. I don't know if it's well-deserved. I've never had any experiences with them, so whatever. But, you know, this did help spring what CPS, at least in Indiana, is today. And hopefully Indiana CPS is good.
Not to mention the laws. If you see something, do something about it. Don't just say something. Yeah, exactly. Don't just be a bystander, especially when it comes to a child.
Yeah, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. The safe route is the good route.
Yep, exactly. So, yes, thank you all so much for listening to us today, or whenever you decide to listen to this. So, thank you. Appreciate that you're even listening at all.
Absolutely. So we got more coming for y'all. We're just going to do random shit. Like, we're still kind of hammering out a profile for the podcast. Like, we're going to talk about horror. We're going to talk about true crime. We're going to probably go do some events. We're going to probably bring in special guests, as we've had so far. So you never know what you're going to get, but the thing you can count on is it's heavily Midwestern influenced. Our true crimes are all going to be Midwest. If we're going to do cryptids, they're going to be Midwest. If we're going to hold events, zombie walks, parties, whatever the hell we're going to do.
It's going to be in the Midwest.
It's going to be Midwest.
It's going to be in a cornfield, because that's why we're called.
Exactly. Blood in the cornfields.
That's a wrap.
Yep. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.